Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 198 of ReelBlend, a podcast that still can't believe Drew Barrymore is the killer in the new Scream. That is a bold choice to bring her back. I don't know how they did it. It's pretty remarkable.
That's one of your better jokes in a while.
And she uses Jiffy Pop, the popcorn. That's her killing method.
But the one from Scary Movie when it's like really big.
Right.
I'm kidding. Obviously, Drew Barrymore is not the killer of the new Scream. On this week's show, Scream Revival is hitting theaters. The directors are going to be joining us. The filmmaking team are joining us as our guests. But first, we're going to go over the SAG nominations. And by I mean Jake Hamilton of Fox 32 in Chicago. Hello, Jakey.
Hello, handsome. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not on a poster for Scream, like some people I know. Nor am I featured in the trailer, like some people I know.
It's so interesting, though, because I'm assuming they just took something from my tweet. I tweeted very positively about the film, but of all the words, 180 characters on Twitter, they just took the word fresh.
That's a little disconcerting. Maybe you were just tweeting like, I just subscribed to HelloFresh and I love it, and they were like, hey.
Yeah.
By the way, Scream's coming out.
That happened to me.
Kevin, didn't you have that one time? I don't want to call out a studio, but didn't you have someone take a word out of context?
Yeah, it ended up in the New York Times. It was Twilight, the first Twilight movie.
Oh.
I think my
was the word shiny?
Shiny.
Shiny?
Kevin wrote, "This will never be one of the best films of the year," and they just took out one of the best films of the year.
Well, kind of. It's kind of what they did. I mean, in my quote for Rotten Tomatoes, it was like something about surprisingly, this film was a lot more intense and powerful than I was expecting. Oh, New York Times. Intense and powerful Kevin McCarthy's for
and once it's out there, it's out there. You can tell them to stop using it, but once it's out there, you can't take it back.
Yeah,
it's fine.
They normally send me an email asking me for approval.
Same,
and they'll ask
some studios do and some studios don't.
Gotcha. Oh. We all know that I would like to be on the front cover of the Spider-Man No Way Home DVD.
I mean, to be fair, I'm on Dune without my name on it.
That's true, and you're on the back of the Snyder Cut, much to
with
my
name on it.
Yeah, with your name
there's a lot other issues with the Dune 4K besides the misquoting.
Oh, that's a good tease. We're going to get to that a little bit later in the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, hello, welcome to 2022, where podcasts have visual elements. If you're listening to us on audio, head down, give us a like and a subscribe. Make sure you spread the word about ReelBlend. We're trying to grow the show out as much as possible for all audio listeners. If you want to watch us, go to youtube.com/ReelBlend podcast. Guys, have you signed up for the ReelBlend premium episode? There's not you guys in particular, you guys are on the premium episodes, but it's a great way for you to spend an extra day with us. We come out on Mondays with a bonus show. We're gonna be doing something really fun this week in particular, so this is a good week to get on board because we're going to be playing something called the 2022 movie blockbuster draft thingamabob. Gabe, help me out.
Not even
here.
close.
No, so you're really selling it. I love that you're asking for people for their money, but then we're doing something.
I was close.
To be
Sean
fair,
didn't introduce me.
Oh,
that's hilarious.
There's a lot going
Kevin
on
McCarthy
here.
of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. Hi,
Hey, Sean. Hey, guys.
Good to see you.
Episode 198.
I'll get it right soon.
Will it get it right by 200? Who knows?
No.
Tune in to find out.
Explain the draft.
We're doing a 2022 fantasy movie draft where you gentlemen will be tasked with drafting a team of film releases that are at right now, as of right now, slated for release in 2022, and you'll be getting a score at the end of the year based on their critical rating, how well they do according to critics on Rotten Tomatoes, and then the winner will get to make the other two do something, which is what we always do. So,
does Sonic come out this year? Sonic 2?
Sonic 2?
Yes, it does.
We'll find out.
Awesome. That's my pick
Yeah.
right there.
So join the premium
2.
feed, check it out, and then play along at home.
And by play along, I mean with Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C.
Oh,
hi, Kev.
Hey, Sean. Hi.
How are you, man?
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
Hey, Jake, Gabe.
Where have you been, Kevin?
I don't know.
Jonathan? Kevin, just for that reason alone, I'm throwing the weekly poll to you, where we asked the listeners, which Scream has your favorite killer or killers reveal? Because in some of the Screams, there are multiple killers.
I will note, I know that they're older films, but let's just keep this segment spoiler free for anyone.
Correct.
Maybe people are catching up last minute because they've heard this new one so good. You never know who's seen what.
That's fair.
So we'll just keep them to the number of the films. We won't say exactly what they are, but go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, I'm going to emphasize which Scream has your favorite reveal. for Killer or Killers. We gave you Scream 1, 2, 3, and 4. Kev, where do you think the people went?
And also, I want to hear Kevin's pick.
Interestingly enough, I mean, I have to say people chose 1, but I wouldn't be surprised if 2 is on that list because I think 2 was one of my favorite reveals of the 4. But I have to go with 1 because the 1 reveal is iconic, again, being vague, because what Scream does brilliantly is they mislead you. So the people that you think are the killer or killers in 1, they give you so many avenues where they can't possibly be the killer.
True.
But then they find a way to go back and make you realize that person was the killer or killers all along. So to me, the ride of 1 was, and similar to like what's going on with like the newer ones as well, like they really are meta in that way. So I think 1 had to be the one. Had to be.
82% of the people picked the first one. 82%.
But I assumed it was going to win. I didn't think it was going to win with that much of a majority.
But it is it's so iconic. I mean, I guess we can't spoil it, but it is 25 years later. But like, I mean, that's the movie where one of the killers is killed on camera. At least we think. Right. And then the reveal is so iconic, Psycho level iconic, Anthony Perkins level iconic, in a way that
the killer quotes Anthony Perkins.
He does. We all go a little mad sometimes, but like, I mean, that to me was the greatest misleading moment. Like because like the cool thing about the Scream movies, and I think you guys would agree, is that when you watch them, you in your mind are like automatically looking to see who the killer is going to be, and the movies are always a step ahead of you. They're always a step ahead of you.
It knows who you're going to suspect.
Right, and that's kind of what's fun about these movies. I think people are going to be really surprised how they play with that in the newer one as well.
Also, a little bit love too that it's one of the few franchises where the killer changes each time. Like it's not Jason every time or Freddy every time, and a new batch of victims.
They sum up like Ghostface, but it's only because that's the mask that
for sure
everyone
yeah.
wears.
I'm sorry, Gabe, what'd you say?
There were some comments on the poll you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, so I wanted to say the Scream 1 took it by a landslide, but second place was Scream 4, and a lot of the comments were people saying that Scream 4 was their other pick. They said they were going with 1, but Scream 4 was the other.
Oh, I
Scream
love
4.
4.
Literally my least favorite Scream.
Wait. 4 is
my
at
least favorite.
At least admit 4 is better than 3.
No, by least favorite, I mean I like 3 better.
That's insane, dude.
That's what that means.
Why do you hate on 4 so much? 4 is so great.
I hate the plot. I hate the performances. It feels like they tried to like usher in technology to be hip, but it wasn't technology that anyone was using. It felt like a bunch of like 16, 70-year-old people saying this is what the kids are doing these days. I even went back and rewatched it to get ready for Scream 5. I refuse to call it Scream, and couldn't stand it. I hate the killer reveal. I hate the motive. I hate everything about Scream 4.
I'm holding on to the idea that Scream 5 should have included 5 somewhere in it. Like the S of Scream should have been a 5.
If you refuse to call it Scream 5, what did you call the 2018 Halloween?
Halloween. He put a bunch of E's in it. Halloween.
No, how did you refer to that though?
He called it Halloween.
It's
but it's not as good. But it's not as good as Scream 5.
Oh, you're asking me the question.
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Oh, I don't know.
Yes.
It felt okay, but by this point, you have to keep in mind Halloween has already branched off into so many different timelines, and it's been remade, and there have been sequels to the remakes. That at this point, everyone's so lost that it doesn't matter. Scream is still one coherent thread, one timeline, in which this one.
But to the Halloween topic, isn't it kind of dumb that no one calls that movie Halloween? You have to call it Halloween 2018. That's not the title of it, but we have to call it that because Halloween is already the most classic.
Most people I know call it Halloween, the one that came out a few years ago.
Right,
so that's how most people refer to it.
But if you're following the Scream 5 thing, you would have to technically call that Halloween 2.
Well, I just hate any title that reuses a title that's already in the franchise.
I kind of like it.
Which is a topic that's brought up in the new Scream.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Is it really? I forget already.
Yeah. The whole.
Well, I'll tell you who can refresh our memories.
Why didn't they just call it Stab 8?
Oh, that's right. They did have a conversation.
Requel.
Don't give away any.
That's okay. You're allowed to use that word.
You know who did that? Jay and Silent Bob did that first. Thank you very much.
It's true.
Jay and Silent Bob, who are characters in Scream 3.
Yes,
so Scream takes place in the Jay and Silent Bob universe.
Yeah.
Hey, why do you hate Jay and Silent Bob?
Yeah, why do you hate Kevin Smith?
You kidding me? Dude, that moment right before they get to Good Will Hunting 2 hunting season and they rush through the Scream set and was it who is the actress who's playing Sydney in that scene? From 90210.
It was Shannon Doherty.
Yeah, and then the killer's a monkey. The killer's a monkey.
It's like, Wes, you're not even trying anymore.
Here's a group of people who can actually break down all the things that we're discussing here right now. About
so
Scream and the rules and the franchise and their love of Wes Craven and everything that comes with it. This is Matt and Tyler, who are the co-directors for this, as well as their producing partner, Chad. They go by the collective team name of Radio Silence. They are our guests talking the new Scream on the ReelBlend podcast.
What an honor. We are the ReelBlend podcast. We are a filmmaker-based podcast, so please feel free to get as nerdy as possible. And all three of us truly love this movie. And what I always say is that whenever we don't love a movie, we just awkwardly start the interview. So seriously, we do truly love it. I'm going to kick us off without getting into spoilers. I want to talk about, as storytellers, how important the identity of the killer or killers is and the motive behind it. Whenever you're sort of going through the script and you get to that part, if you don't personally like it or agree with it, could you have made this movie? Like, how crucial is the final act in terms of whether or not you even want to do this movie?
I think it's the answer. The answer is no, we couldn't. Like that, you have to land the plane. And I think when we got to that part of the script and we read it for the first time, February 2020, I think the thing that we were most nervous of is because every page was incredible and we were just loving it. And I think we all were getting closer. Like, we know it's coming.
Please stick the landing.
Please stick the landing. We got there like, oh shit, this is exactly what it should be. And that was for us the clincher. That's what we're like.
Yeah,
oh.
and I love that you're leading off with this question too, because like a lot of the questions we've got is like more in the horror genre and slasher space of it all too. But like what Scream is and its identity is the whodunit element and the mystery element, and trying to solve that and piece it all together. So that's just as important as making sure that the kills are violent and scary and everything else is happening, is maintaining that mystery throughout. And if it's not there on the page, it's not going to work. It's not going to translate. So Guy and Jamie did such an incredible job with it, and they kept us guessing while we were doing our very first read. And we were able to like lean on that script and as we were in production and even through the edit to get the movie to where it is today.
I think one of the things too that you're asking about that's really essential to a Scream movie is how that reveal always recontextualizes the whole movie, right?
Right.
Like suddenly you go, wait, and the whole time, and it gives you a reason to go back and watch it again in a new way. And I think that's it's something that we certainly love about the original right. Four, but the challenge is making sure that works, right? That if you do the clue math of the movie leading up to that reveal, that it actually all makes sense. There is a real intricate kind of roadmap designed in the blueprint of what these movies are. And again, that is just credit to Guy and Jamie for knocking that out of the park in this movie.
All right, I'm going to piggyback off of Jake's question and say that much earlier in the process, you have to know that the opening scene of a Scream movie works.
Yeah.
Yes. And without...
That's very true. Start strong and end strong. That's what...
Yeah, exactly. And so, again, no details because, we want everybody to enjoy this movie the way that it should be. But when you pick up the script and you read that opening scene, if it's not a home run, what are your concerns? How do you address them?
I mean... Well, luckily we didn't have that. You know what I mean? Right? We picked it up and we were like, we got to, page, this is not a spoiler, page 10, 11, 12. And
sure,
we're like, oh, they did it. It took off successfully. Now it's got to land successfully. And I think, one of the things too, that it was wonderful on the page, but then when Jenna brought it to life when we were shooting in the edit.
She's so good.
She's incredible, right?
She's incredible.
Because what you don't get in when you're doing the opening of a Scream movie, at least for ours or for all of them, you have to just instantly empathize with that person. You have to feel their vulnerability. You have to care for them without any lead up, without any runtime. Mm-hmm. And so Jenna she allows you to just get inside her head instantly. And so you go on that journey of the opening scene with her. And I think that's why it's so successful. And that's why, that's a big part of why the Drew Barrymore one is you're just with her the whole time.
Yeah.
And that was something I think. We loved that stuff Guy and Jamie wrote for this opening scene, and then to see Jenna bring it to life.
It's awesome.
It was incredible. It's one of my favorite openings, actually. And I'll tell you right now, I still have my original Scream tickets. My first
that is awesome. That is great. What's the price on there? Just curious.
The first one was $4. Second one was $3. I went cheaper on the second one. It was $3. I guess it was a later because it was the same year. I saw both of them in '97 actually.
Yeah. Did you go on a Tuesday?
It was a Friday. So I wanted to ask you. I was 12 when I saw the first Scream, and my friend and I went to the theater with his dad. And he bought 3 tickets. We walked in, so the usher knew we were going in with a guardian or a parent, and then he rolled out. And then my buddy and I just stayed, and we watched the movie. What was that movie for you guys growing up? A movie you snuck into, or or did you have elaborate ways you would get into R-rated movies? Do you guys have that experience in your childhoods?
Mine was always sneaking in. We'd buy a ticket for Home Alone and then go see Terminator or whatever. I mean, it's like that kind of thing. But I think the big one for me with going to the theater with my dad was he took me to Aliens when I was like 8. Ooh. And I remember, so well him saying you don't have to tell your mom. Let's go.
Our little secret. Yeah.
What about you guys?
For me, it was a little bit different because when I was younger, I couldn't sneak into a theater because my hometown didn't even have a movie theater. It was 25 miles away was the closest theater. Oh, wow. So, and this is rural Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania in the mid 80s. So what I relied on mainly was I had one friend who had 3 older brothers and sisters, and they would actually grab VHS tapes. And that was my introduction into horror because they loved scaring the living shit out of us when we were a kid. So we were terrified the entire night, but we watched, Evil Dead and all the George Romero's. And that was kind of we were watching something forbidden and something that it made us feel cool and adult for a little while. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun.
For you?
Yeah. And I wasn't much of a sneaker into of theaters. I was just
great. You got to try it sometime.
I was just such a chicken shit as a kid. My fear and fun parts of my brain weren't really connected, but I certainly loved watching movies on VHS, and many of those movies now, as you sort of think back now that now that we make horror movies, that some of the most formative things that I watched were Alien, Predator, Terminator 2, Aliens, RoboCop, these big movies that were horror movies that were all kind of also sandwiched into another genre. And then of course the watching horror movies at sleepovers was another huge thing. But everything was, my experience with horror was always around sharing it with a group, which I think is, we can say is the same for all of us, right? That there is something about the experience has always been really communal for us. And I think that, certainly we that was in our heads and in our hearts when we were making this movie, really wanting to make it to play in a theater in front of a large audience. And I think that's something we've had so many memories formed in that experience, and wanting to create that for others has always been a goal for us.
Well, this is the closest I've ever felt to the experience I had seeing the first movie. So I want to say thank you to you guys for this because it's
huge compliment.
All right, yeah.
Brilliant.
Guys, I recently went back and rewatched 1 through 4 to get ready for this film, and it's just a reminder of how many truly iconic individual moments are throughout those 4 films. If you guys could have directed any moment from any of Wes's films, what's the moment you'd think you'd have the most fun directing?
Scream specifically, or
Scream specifically? All 4 Screams. All 4 Screams.
Wow, that's a great question.
I mean, my initial reaction, much like I think our initial reaction to stepping in to do this one, is no way. They're already why would I do that?
How dare they?
But what sequence or what kill?
What's any sequence?
I mean, for me, it's always the one, and I know Chad, you say this sometimes too, so we might have to fight over this one, but for me, it's the first night that Sydney's home alone in the first one. He answers the phone, all the right moves, all that, all the way until Dewey shows up with the thing at the door and Billy gets taken away. That's like all of Scream for me in one.
That is like distilled Scream.
Yeah, that's good. I wouldn't even go back further. Sydney getting home, then the cut tonight. It's that whole thing.
Off the bus. Yeah, that was great. Bye, Sydney.
With the mailbox right after the liver in the mailbox. You got the whole
because when he brings up her mom, you just feel like a shift where you go like, oh yeah, this feels real now. They're
About
this
something
got
really
really
real.
talking about it.
Personal.
Yeah. What about you guys? Any other sequence beyond that?
Yeah, I think for me, it's in Scream 2 is the sound booth sequence.
Yes.
Which is just like, you just see Gale and Dewey, finally getting along and like, almost consummating their relationship and moving everything forward. And then there's just this barrier between them and it's a physical barrier and you can't hear what's on the other side or see what's on the other side or warn somebody that you're falling in love with, that the killer is behind you. I love that sequence. Like, it's honestly one of my favorite in all 4 of the movies. And it just definitely left an impression on me after watching it. And it's one I often revisit in terms of dealing with characters and insurmountable odds and just like different destinies and how tragic that story could possibly be between these two people who are falling in love.
And pizza. You love pizza on glass.
Oh, yeah. And I like pizza. Yeah.
I also say really quick about that sequence, that has one of my favorite Ghostface pop-ups in all.
Yeah.
Straight up from behind.
Jumps like back in the box. Yeah.
And for me, I love that sequence in 2 when Hallie and Sid are stuck in the back of the car. And
That's the best scene.
Up and
So
around.
good.
That to me is like it's a moment where the movie it's all about staying away from this character, right? Getting as far away from the villain as possible, and then in a like wild Scream subversion, they're forced to actually climb over, be as intimate as they possibly could be with the killer in order to survive. It's one of those moments that you watch and you go, fuck, I wish I made that.
Yeah.
You can hope that maybe have a
Craven.
fraction of something that amazing in your, in your work.
Have you seen the outtakes of that with them cracking?
No.
That's amazing.
That's another one of those things.
So good.
And this is an experience we have on every one of our sets, where when you're making something that you hope is truly terrifying and a really tense moment for the audience, it's actually more like shooting a comedy.
It's funny.
It's always
always
sort of
funny.
Yeah, like it's weird that like humor and horror sort of exist in the same part of your brain, right? Like creating a joke and creating a scare are weirdly, it's sort of the same equation. So it doesn't surprise me at all that like that is one of the most hilarious things. And honestly, I think part of what's so fun about these movies is like driving the tension to a level of absurdity that you just can't wait for it to break, right? And that for me is a perfect example of one of those moments.
Love it.
So during screenings, when we're having an interview, we take a ton of notes, and I've got a whole book of notes from Scream. And the only thing that I starred immediately after the movie was over that I had to ask, because it's a movie that almost ripped this podcast apart, is where you guys fall on the Star Wars: The Last Jedi debate. So I need to know your opinion about whether it's good or bad.
I'm not wading into those waters. Great movie. Yeah. I think the fun thing, just to say it about The Last Jedi, I think, is that's a great example of like, you create something, and then it is no longer yours, and it's up to other people to kind of have their points of view and have their conversations about it, and it's out of your hands once you made it and put it into the world. It becomes everybody's, for better or worse.
So if it sustains conversation, is that a success for you guys, no matter what the conversation is?
Absolutely.
I think so. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Unless that conversation is just, I fucking hate it.
It's just a hate fest, then no.
But
there's a debate.
Though we always say like the worst thing is to land in the middle, is to create something that people are like, it was okay. We'd rather have people be like, I loved it, or people be like, I fucking hate it. And then the idea that those two opinions can collide and actually create a conversation, that's interesting.
That's why some of our stuff people hate.
You know what? One thing I really love about this film, outside, it looked like it was shot on 35. I know you shot digitally, but it looked like film. I'm assuming you added grain to it, and then obviously with Beltrami's original scores, and then Brian Tyler does a brilliant job with the score here. I always wanted to ask this because I know I already heard a famous story about Wes Craven when he submitted Scream 2 to the MPAA, he would actually add more violence to the cut, and that way he could get the version that he wanted to get the R rating. The violence in this film, like I'm shocked that you were able to get an R rating, because it is brutal, like to a point where, like, I mean, the stabbings are really intense and very insane in the best way possible, for the best way I love Scream movies. I was wondering if you guys had any issues with the MPA in terms of like the stabbing shots and the multiple stabbings, and did you put a more violent cut to them so you could get the version you wanted?
Not with the MPA. which is what it is now, right?
Yeah.
1A.
Yeah,
They lost the
MPA.
name.
1A.
Yeah.
But
They had to rebrand.
you know, we did have
2022.
right. We did have, you know, we had a lot of conversations with the studio about, is it too violent? Is it, you know, not? And I mean, some of them are here, so I'll whisper.
Yeah.
But, you know, it all comes out in the wash. But we definitely did in that part of the process. You know, let's throw a couple extra stabs in because we know they're going to be asked taking them out, and then we just get back to what we want, you know. And it's like it was stuff like that. You kind of manipulate the system a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think everybody was happy with it. So
I think we also just knew that we had to push. You have to push the envelope with that stuff. I think.
Oh yeah.
And you have to convince people that that's what you have to do.
That's what you have to do. Because I think after 4 movies, the idea of what a Scream movie is kind of exists separate from the specific 4 movies, right? It's like, oh yeah, it's like a fun kind of self-reflexive, you know, entertaining slasher. And then you watch them and you go, no, these are like hardcore, brutal horror movies. And we had to keep reminding people that that is a key ingredient to the rest of that fun shit working. There has to be real tension and real stakes at all times. And we really wanted to make sure that Ghostface was terrifying and brutal. I mean, that for us is like as important as anything else. That character doing justice to Ghostface was like such a huge responsibility to tackle.
Well, mission accomplished. You guys absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, it was.
We love hearing that, and thank you, because I think for us, we
love compliments.
Yeah, I mean specifically about the violence. I think for us, we had a fear that like maybe we should have gone harder, I think part of that is
it was perfect.
What you realize is that in moments. You have to go there in one moment, and then maybe you don't have to go there every time, right? That you have to show the audience that the movie can do that thing, and then everyone thinks that it's going to, and whether you do it to a lesser degree or a greater degree, it all sort of feels like it's now in that unsafe territory, which is really, I think, just one of the things, the tools that Wes helped us. He provided his movies gave us.
There's such an energy to your kills. Like there's such like almost like an anger. Yeah, like that's what we keep using the word anger. Like just with the stabs,
insane.
unlike anything we've seen before.
Yeah, there are deaths in this movie that are on the Rose McGowan level for me in terms of classic like Scream deaths. Wow. Like that's where this movie's at for me.
I just want to throw in quick. I brought my 13-year-old to the press screening because he's a little bit new to horror. He's a little new to horror, but he's watched the Scream movies and they're one of his favorites. And he literally said to me, he's like, if you can get me out of school to go see Scream, it'll make my year. And so I was like, all right, I have to pull that off. I only regretted bringing him like twice, so that's not too bad. That's pretty good.
I wish we could talk about some of that stuff with you guys.
Aside from the legacy actors and Ghostface and the kills themselves, one of the things I most associate with Scream is the song Red Right Hand. And I know a lot of people now associate that with Peaky Blinders, but when I hear Red Right Hand, to me, that's Scream. Like when Dewey slams the door shut on the beat of the song in Scream 1, I always loved that. I always thought that was the coolest thing as a kid.
So great.
I'm sort of curious about using Red Right Hand in this movie when you know like the right place to do it and just the conversation of doing it in the first place, because I don't think it's used in every single Scream.
It's not used in 4.
Yeah, we just confirmed that today. Yeah. Somehow 2 years of our nonstop studying Screams, we had forgotten that it wasn't in 4.
So could you talk about using it in this one and how you know when the right place to use that song is?
You know, we bounced around a lot on it. We knew we wanted to use it because, like you guys are saying, it's so integral to Scream, right? And we knew we wanted to use it, and we couldn't quite find a place that didn't feel.
We put it in 6 places.
Yeah, we tried so many, and we couldn't find a place that didn't just feel like it was kind of overkill homage-y. You know, we were like, we don't want to just, because we never wanted to just get stuck in the past and doing things just to show you that we can do what somebody else already did perfectly. What's the point of that? And so where it does end up in the movie,
which is awesome, by the way.
Thank you. And we're glad you're picking up on that, because to us it was like it makes sense in the story for why it's there and what it's used for. And so for us, once that really clicked, we were like, oh my God, why did it take us 3 months to figure this out? This is exactly where it belongs. And we didn't touch it after that.
Oh, love it. Love it.
Awesome. This is not a spoiler, but this is a filmmaker's podcast, and I love asking about how certain shots get done. You guys homage the Hitchcock shower shot. I want to know did you mimic his approach to it? Did you solve a different way to figure it out? It's still one of the most breathtaking shots I've ever seen. How did you guys pull it off?
that was like the intersection of knowing we wanted that shot and then finding a location that had
the ability to shoot it,
that had a glass. It was encased in glass, and there was enough room for us to get the camera low enough to achieve that in a way that didn't, of course, damage the camera, the equipment. Yeah. But it was one of those that every time we went scouting for that location, for that bathroom, that was one of the things. And it was one of the things that was just kind of non-negotiable for us, honestly, in our shot list and our storyboards as we were sort of drawing that on. And that was I remember very specifically that day of shooting, it was like, guys,
yeah, we were told
we're really going to waste time in getting a shot of a shower head when we have this huge thing that we need to be company moving to get done. And we were like, yeah, this is like, we need this. This has to be, this is one of those moments where the movie is speaking to the idea of the entire genre. It has to be captured.
And even just since we are getting deep movie nerd on this, I mean, for us, it was, we talked to Kevin Williamson a lot about the movies, and I think this is just public knowledge anyways, but there is such a lineage from Psycho to Halloween to Scream. There's Loomis in all of them. It's like Halloween was influenced by Psycho. You have Jamie Lee Curtis and Janet Leigh. And then Halloween to Scream. Yeah. Obviously, like Kevin said many times that Scream was his kind of love letter to Halloween. Mm-hmm. Halloween's a love letter to Psycho. So there's this real lineage that starts with Psycho. And so for us to get that lineage in a new way, not just ways that already existed in the previous Screams, was just really important to us.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I want to geek out with you guys about Roger L. Jackson because obviously the voice is so iconic. And so I know I was honored to interview Nev Campbell earlier for the first time in my career, and I always wanted to know whether or not those calls were happening in real time, like were the actors actually on the phone with Roger doing those moments. And it was fascinating to hear kind of the idea of not meeting him and kind of like what that meant. But I wanted to ask your perspective as directors and filmmakers on this film about working with him. Where does he go during the call scenes? So I guess maybe we can use a scene for an example out of context, but can you talk about how that's done? Is he actually calling into the phone that we're seeing in the movie? And then how is it, like, are you amping it up in post? I'm just curious, like, kind of how that plays out.
It's a bit of both in that opening sequence. Yeah. And part of this was just the circumstances of making the movie. We had to have a really limited set
during the pandemic.
But yeah,
and his voice was a little different, I thought, by the way, at times.
Yeah, and we had him. I mean, the amazing thing about Roger is he can calibrate that character in an infinite number of ways. We had him like do a younger sounding read. We had him do a more gravelly sounding read, and we had and then there's every, of course, gear in between, right? But for that first sequence in particular, he was on his phone. He's in Northern California. And he was on his phone from his place calling into our set in Wilmington. For a good portion of that was reading along with Jenna Ortega on the phone. And then throughout the process was recording stuff to send to us that we could play to characters because we couldn't have them on phone the whole time. We wished we could have, but I mean, it's just a sort of a production nightmare, 3 hours difference, East Coast and West Coast. But he was so game to be involved in every way he could to make sure that the real terror of confronting that character was present for the actors.
Well, and then
he's just, I mean,
I was just going to say that he also
incredible characterization in that voice.
He ended up, we did a pass with him at the end of the movie when we were locking sound, where he did ADR for a lot of it. And what was so great about that is he'd given us so many options. And so, because one of the things we love, especially in like the Drew Barrymore scene and a lot of the original, is that it starts off and he's not even Ghostface yet. And he's just kind of nice and he's toying with his victim a little bit. And then it goes up a gear and it's kind of menacing, but it's not that menacing. And then it goes up to like, I'm going to fucking gut you. Yeah. And you're like,
there's like a jump scare in the read, in the vocalization.
So he would give us different layers. And then when we were finished with everything and we had the whole movie, we could really dial that in with him and just get it to exactly where we wanted it for the whole movie. So he kind of did another pass on it and we kind of pick and choose. It was a lot of fun. And he is just awesome. Like a character.
Yeah, he is a character.
It's insane.
And I will say, and being very vague, it's an honor with how you played with that in trailer versus film was so cool. So that was so awesome.
Great. I stayed through the credits and was lucky enough to see a very fun special thanks section at the very end.
Oh, nice.
I hope it's okay that I'm going to reveal what it is. It's all the actors who have been killed in the history history of the Scream franchise. And when you see all of their names together, it's really a reminder of how many A-list stars have met their demise over these 4 films. And I'm sort of curious where the idea for that special thanks section came from, and did it have an impact on you when you see Henry Winkler and Drew Barrymore, when you see, all of these actors sort of squished together?
Here, I'll allow us to be mildly vague because of spoilers, but that list there is a moment in the movie, for people who haven't seen it yet, that is very special to us, that happens, that I don't know how to describe it, but I think if you've seen the movie, you'll know. And we got a lot of people to participate in that. And so vocally.
They all provide a vocal cameo. All of the people on that special thanks
provide vocal cameos.
What?
Yes.
Wait.
Talk more about it.
We're happy to talk more.
We should have another conversation.
No spoilers. So let's put a pin in it. But yes,
can you tell us off the record what it is?
I love that. That's amazing. I think we have time for about 2 more. I'm going to fit this one in.
Back on the record.
Back on the record.
Back on the record, yes. If you guys could talk about modernizing, they're staples of the Scream genre, and one of them is a landline. When you have to approach modernizing a landline, how do you go about doing that? Are you concerned at all that, like, it's kind of a relic?
Yeah, I mean, it is a relic.
You make a joke about it.
First thing in the movie,
honestly, I didn't even know what one looked like. So, like, when they brought it in, I'm like, is that new? Is that old? I don't even know what that is.
My parents just got rid of their landline last year, and I was like heartbroken, even though I haven't called in years. I was like, but I think it is. It's addressing it within the movie and having the characters have exactly the reaction that we'd have, which is, I don't know, fucking gives a shit.
I think the fun thing about Ghostface is as a killer is that they've always used all of the ingredients in the world of the movie to cause mayhem, right? Like all of those things, all of the technology, whether it's in 96 or in 2021, all of the things at our disposal is something that's at the killer's disposal. And they all provide a new opportunity to create terror and to play the game, right? And that for us was on the page since day one. Guy and Jamie really understood that for this movie to work, it had to feel like it was modernized in the way that all of us understand our lives now. And we think it handled all that really well. And we also just love that anytime technology exists in these movies, it's always an obstacle, right? The thing that's supposed to keep you safe is always the thing that ends up kind of being your undoing at the end. And we thought they handled that really, really beautifully in the script.
Definitely.
I'll end on this. One of my favorite scenes is early on in the film. Melissa and Jack are driving in the car, and he's basically saying he's never seen Stab, and then he goes, "Wait, you've never seen that?" And he's like, "I've never seen Gone with the Wind." What is, for each of you, what is the one classic movie that each of you have never seen that you'd be embarrassed to say? Like, people would go, "Oh my God, how have you not seen that?"
That's a really good question.
I mean, mine is Gone with the Wind, so
I'm embarrassed. Mine's Casablanca.
Oh
man! Like, what?
We're in a safe space here.
It is. It is. I have seen the majority. I've never seen it all.
No judgment. No judgment.
No judgment.
I'm overwhelmed with disappointment for my colleague. Well, not you so much. Gone with the Wind, whatever. But
there was one recently.
Casablanca. Yeah, I feel like we just had this conversation.
And you were like, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, what the fuck was it though?
He's like, weirdly enough, it's Scream.
A lot of movies.
Yeah. He's never seen Ready or Not. Weirdly enough, he just.
I mean, I haven't seen No Way Home yet.
What?
Now we're gonna judge you. Now
I haven't had a chance. I have a kid. It's really hard to get out to the movie.
You're also releasing a big movie. I mean, it's.
I have no excuse.
I really, I'll email you guys when I think of something.
Don't buy a ticket to it next week because you don't want to help it. You don't want to help it at all.
All right. Well, this
to
has
go
been
back
an
to our
absolute.
sneaking in. I'll buy a ticket. No.
But exactly. You want to take the screen and go sneak into that.
That's a good idea. Actually, I might do that.
Well, we don't want to take up more of you guys' time. We know that you guys have been talking to everybody today, and we really, really appreciate you coming on the ReelBlend podcast. And we can't wait for everybody to go check this movie out and then come back and dissect all the spoilers. So we really appreciate it, guys.
Honestly, this was super fun. And if you ever want us again, let us know. This is a great conversation. Thank you so much.
We'll call you guys tomorrow.
We
All right, talk to you then.
Of the four of us, who would die first? It would be me, wouldn't it?
Yeah, totally.
As soon as
If I
said
had
that, I was
anything
like,
to say about it.
Okay, so Gabe's the killer, and I would die first.
Yeah.
Okay, so between Kevin and Sean, I think Kevin's the final girl.
No, I want the garage death.
Well, someone has to live.
I feel like I would live.
Why?
Yeah.
I'm a seasoned veteran of the.
So you're the person that we think is going to be safe, and then you die, and then Kevin's like the Ripley. He ends up.
Correct. I'm like the Loomis.
You guys are forgetting that we're all Jamie Kennedy. We're all just Jamie Kennedy.
It's a podcast full of Randys.
We'll die in two. Off camera.
Off camera. Yes, exactly. All right. On the day that we are recording today's show, the SAG Awards were announced. They are, in the wake of the Golden Globes sort of disappearing. They're the next sort of important bellwether to announce their nominations behind a Critics' Choice, of which, full disclosure, we are all members, but we put our nominations out already. And so I want to go over some of the nominations for SAG. So let's go right to the top of the chain and get into what amounts to their Best Picture nomination, which is the outstanding performance by a cast in a motion picture. And there are 5. So theoretically, all 5 of these could show up in the Oscars in addition to, because we know for a fact the Academy is doing 10. They're going to do 10.
I think they did say they're straight up doing, not like somewhere between 5 and 10. I think I heard them say that they are straight up doing 10.
Okay. So SAG went with Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up, House of Gucci, and shouldn't there be a 5th one?
King
there?
Richard.
Oh, King Richard. Oh, it's underneath an ad.
I have some words about that.
Well, why don't you hit us up with those words, Kev?
3 things. 1, Don't Look Up needs to get off this list immediately.
It's just because of who makes up the ensemble. That's
a big
that's
cast.
The reason. And every member of the cast is an A-list star.
Sure, but so weirdly, and again, I'm not saying.
And keep in mind, we're not talking about quality of film. They're talking ensemble,
right?
So it's not Best Picture.
But I'm not saying
the best ensemble.
Right.
Sure.
But I'm not saying the Golden Globes hold any weight. But I find it interesting that the Golden Globes drama pick was Power of the Dog and their musical comedy pick was West Side Story. Neither ended up on the 5 SAG Ensemble list. I would argue West Side Story is a much better ensemble than Don't Look Up, just because Don't Look Up has bigger stars and it's more famous. Like the fact that like Mike Faced and like everybody who's in West Side Story, that's an ensemble piece through and through, no question.
And also, I mean, I don't even think of King Richard, and I love King Richard.
It's not an
I don't
ensemble
think of King
piece.
Richard as an ensemble piece. There are a collection of really great performances. Well, I don't really think of it as not in the way the West Side Story is.
I guess if you get to 4 main performances, and what I think you're saying is Will Smith, the woman who plays his wife,
Ingenue Ellis, who
didn't get
deserves
nominated
the
somehow.
Oscar.
The girl who plays Venus, whose name I'm blanking on as well too, and then I'd even throw John Bernthal in there. Are you at an ensemble?
I mean, I guess. I mean, it's no different than Coda. Coda is mainly the 4 members of the family plus the teacher.
Sure.
Yeah, but Coda, I would argue, is still ensemble heavy because a lot of the best scenes are the family sequences. I guess King Richard.
That's King Richard too.
Yeah, I guess you would have to go that route. I mean,
are you guys surprised that House of Gucci got in?
No, because I'm saying when I came out of that theater, I texted you guys this today. When I came out of the theater, I said that's going to win SAG.
Yes, but I feel like the buzz behind that, the awards buzz, has died down considerably. I'm not talking about whether or not it deserved to get in. I feel like it hasn't been picking up any. I mean, it wasn't nominated for Best Picture at the Globes. It hasn't really been picking up a lot of Best Picture nominations. I feel like people sort of, the tide is turning against Jared Leto, where people are arguing whether or not Jared Leto was great or horrible. I honestly, the one that surprised me the most of all of, I mean, because Don't Look Up doesn't surprise me because of who makes up the ensemble. It's A-lister after A-lister after A-lister. House of Gucci surprised me in particular because it wasn't Power of the Dog or West Side Story. Say what you want to about Power of the Dog. Like, it's a Best Picture frontrunner, and just about every person in that cast is probably going to be nominated for an Oscar. So how do you not consider that for Best Ensemble? Regardless of your opinion of the film. I know the 3 of us don't particularly love that film.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is it just that they cut off their nose to spite their face with just 5 nominations?
I mean, granted, I love how crazy this awards season feels right now. I think it's fantastic. I love that we're up in the air. And, I mean, no pun intended, that we don't know what's going to happen.
They're literally missing the best ensemble film of the year. Dune.
Barb and Star?
Well, Barb and Star for sure, but Dune is literally an ensemble piece. The poster
Dune is nowhere to be found.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
As I'm saying, this list is ridiculous. At the end of the day, again, we're not arguing quality here, but I mean, I know Don't Look Up. We don't love Don't Look Up. We liked King Richard. We don't love King Richard. I love Coda. I mean, Belfast I'm happy with, but West Side Story and Dune and should be on this list. And Power of the Dog not being on here is shocking to me. But I mean, then again, like Power of the Dog,
the biggest surprise.
But Power of the Dog, I guess we have to think about what the word ensemble really means here, because Power of the Dog, for the most part, are these individualized sequences, right? That are
Benedict's movie.
It's more, but that's why West Side Story.
Though. Like Cumberbatch is great.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
I mean,
I
Kirsten
agree.
Dunst is great. Cody Smith McPhee is great.
But how is Dune not on this list?
I don't know. That's a little bit crazy.
Yeah,
I have no idea. Let's get to outstanding performance by a male actor in a leading role. These are theoretically your contenders for the Best Actor Oscar.
Javier
Bardem for being the Ricardos. Benedict Cumberbatch.
But the SAG always throw out. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Benedict Cumberbatch, Power of the Dog. Andrew Garfield, Tick, Tick, Boom. Will Smith, King Richard. And Denzel Washington, The Tragedy of Macbeth. I mean, to me, it seems like Cumberbatch is still the front runner. Jake, you seem to think it's Will Smith.
I still think it's Will Smith. I think Will Smith's the front runner. I think we have to remember there's always a big difference between the Critics Awards and the awards shows. And I think we've been hearing Cumberbatch a lot because of this critics organization and this critics organization. I think we're going to start to see the rise of Will Smith in the ranks. I think it's a situation where people want Will Smith to win an Oscar. They want to live in a world where Will Smith has an Oscar. I don't think Bardem gets in at the Oscars. SAG always throws out one or two where you just go, where the hell did that come from? And I think
who'd
this year,
replace him?
I'd say either Dinklage or Nicolas Cage.
Oh, interesting. Cage. I'm a little surprised Cage didn't make it into here. I kind of thought his other actors would recognize what he didn't pick.
Exactly. Which makes me think that Dinklage will get that fifth slot.
But we all agree that Will Smith's win would be a career win. I mean, at the end of the day, like I think his performance in King Richard's great. But I mean, we saw this happen with Denzel for leading. I mean, I love him in Training Day, but he probably should have won for Malcolm X. DiCaprio won for Revenant. He probably should have won for Wolf of Wall Street. Now, Denzel did win supporting for Glory years ago, but we have seen a pattern over the years that a lot of actors end up winning. Even Scorsese didn't win his award till The Departed. It's all career oriented.
I'll say this. I agree with you that I think Will Smith's is a little bit more a career win
100%.
Than the performance, but I don't hate that he wins for this performance. Like, I'm not going to look back a couple years later and say like, oh, he won for King Richard. Yeah, he was really good in that.
Yeah. I mean,
he was very good in it, but it's not a best performance.
I mean, keep in mind, Pacino won for Scent of a Woman.
Yeah, but
right.
Andrew Garfield is so far beyond Will Smith's performance out of this list.
Will Smith.
Oh, it's not even close.
I know you guys are all over Garfield's performance, and I liked his performance quite a bit in Tick, Tick, Boom. I really did, but I would choose Benedict over Garfield.
No.
What?
Yeah.
I understand what he's doing in that movie, but part of the, like, it's a visual medium meant to entertain, I think. Well, no, I guess that's not fair. You can still make a probing drama. I can't ever watch that performance again because it's like watching paint dry.
It's a great performance. But Garfield, to me, looking at this list, Garfield is so far beyond anyone on this list in terms of performance. It's just to me, it's not even a question. I know he's probably not going to win because, as like Jake was saying, like it's the Oscars. It's all about like the career and the campaigning, and it's just never really.
But also, Will Smith hasn't been campaigning. He hasn't been out there shaking hands.
He's starting to. Yeah.
Did Frances McDormand campaign for her stuff? She always wins anyways.
She famously does not care.
Right.
That's right. That's how good she was in Nomadland. They couldn't.
Sean, have you ever interviewed? I've never interviewed her. I don't know. I don't think I know if that many people have interviewed her.
No.
I've never gotten her. I don't think she does TV really.
No, I can't recall ever getting her. Although what was really weird the other day, I remembered an interview that I did. I can't even think of what it is now. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I spoke to that person. Like all of a sudden it just flashed back. Yeah. I remembered a movie and I remember doing the junket for it. And I was like, oh my God, I talked to... Totally forgot. So let's get to outstanding performance by a female actor in a leading role. These have some surprises. Jessica Chastain. Jessica Chastain gets in for The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Olivia Colman in for The Lost Daughter. Lady Gaga for House of Gucci. Jennifer Hudson gets in for Respect, and Nicole Kidman in for playing Lucille Ball in Being the Ricardos. Now, everyone's talking about Kristen Stewart getting snubbed, theoretically. I tweeted something.
I saw.
Which seemed to be
may God have
borderline
mercy on your soul.
unpopular. But I do think her coming out and saying she doesn't give a shit about awards might have led some people who could have been split, to say, well, if she doesn't give a shit, then I'm going to give it to Jennifer Hudson or Olivia Colman or someone like that. So I don't know if that's the reason she got left off. I think that she belongs on the list. I think she was terrific in Spencer. But I'm not going to discount the fact that, apathy in these interviews, without question, there's a certain quotient of how bad do you want this kind of thing. And, Kristen Stewart in Spencer is not Frances McDormand in Nomadland. She's just not. And so I think Frances can go around and say, and also because of the things that Frances has accomplished over the years, can go around and say, no, I'm not campaigning. But I think for any actor to come out in an interview supporting the movie that you're talking about, and you get a softball question of how do you feel about the awards buzz, and you turn around and you say, I don't really give a shit. And people are coming around saying, oh, she was joking. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you were joking or not. It's in print. It's there now. And so I'm not surprised to see her left off the list.
Do you think at all that there is ever this situation where enough people assume she's going to be nominated and therefore use their vote for someone else? And if enough people do that, then all of a sudden, wouldn't you know it, that person doesn't get nominated?
100%. Yeah, that happens a lot, I'm sure. Are there any other snubs in this category that I'm not thinking of? Was she the main one?
Other than that, I feel like it's going to be those. I still don't think Jennifer Hudson gets. No, she'll be supporting.
Oh, supporting. Okay.
I was very happy that Hudson got in. Like that made me happy because I know, like I actually could not believe that performance hasn't been talked about in a continuing fashion over the past months. I mean, that performance is outstanding. Like when I got out of that movie, I was like, she's gonna win. And right now,
it's not a good movie though.
Yeah, but she's phenomenal. I mean, there's plenty of actors that have won Academy Awards for movies that weren't great, but their performances were.
It's not a bad movie. It's fine.
I actually like Respect a lot.
And I think the fact that it wasn't great and it came out in August doesn't help.
That hurts. Generally, your release date hurts. Unless you get a home video release, that sort of lands right at the exact perfect time. But I'm with Kevin. I'm glad that she got recognized.
Okay, do you guys think that she gets in? And if so, at the cost of who? Okay, so then, I mean, Kristen Stewart's going to be nominated for the Oscar. So then who doesn't get the Oscar nomination?
Yeah, Stewart will get nominated because of the snub, basically.
It could definitely, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Then who gets knocked out?
We all know this, that snubs end up actually helping you in the end. I mean, it's the whole reason.
If it's the right snub, as long as it's not the Oscar snub.
Argo won Best Picture because of a snub.
Chastain could get knocked out.
You think so?
Yes.
The Academy loves Olivia Colman. They love her. No matter what she does, I think Gaga's in, and I think Kidman's in. So if Jennifer Hudson gets the other one, then Chastain's out.
No, I just congratulated her on an early Oscar nom, and she said, "What if you jinxed it?"
Kiss
and
of death.
Said I didn't jinx it. Oh shit!
Kiss of death. Nice job, Jake.
Oh god. Oh god.
Now, I mean, I could be wrong. She very well could win.
I don't think Hudson gets in for the Oscars.
I don't know. I've heard that her team is campaigning hard. They really would like to see her get.
She deserves a nomination. I'm sorry, Jennifer Hudson's performance is outstanding.
I don't disagree.
I can't believe this is even a conversation that we don't know whether or not she's going to get in.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't think she's deserving of a nomination.
Ooh.
I think it's awe-inspiring that anyone has the pipes to match Aretha that Jennifer Hudson has. And I think the musical moments in the film were phenomenal and absolutely worthy of recognition. I feel like the acting moments in between those musical performances, in my opinion, were not that great and not worthy of an Oscar nomination.
Let's get to outstanding performance by a male actor in a supporting role. Odie Smith-McPhee, expected. Jared Leto, House of Gucci. Troy Kotzer for Coda. I'm very happy to see Coda. Get some Kotzer or Kotza? Kotzer? I'm not quite sure. Bradley Cooper, Licorice Pizza.
Yes.
Kind of surprising for his 6 minutes of screen time.
Awesome.
And Ben Affleck for The Tender Bar.
Affleck. Is Affleck in? Kevin, I agree with you so much. I think he's worthy of an Oscar nomination. I think he's phenomenal on Tender Bar.
Affleck's performance in Tender Bar is one of my favorite performances of 2021.
100%. Could not agree with you more.
I would love to hang out with Uncle Charlie. That character was awesome. And I thought the movie was fine, but he was outstanding. I mean, I actually like Tender Bar more than most critics did. But
would you say one of the best performances of his career?
Oh, I told him that. I think this is one of the best performances of your career, no question. Yeah. And it's actually a surprise that he's getting this type of buzz. And I think that he's definitely in for the Oscar. Too. Yeah, he'll get in for the Oscar.
That makes me, because he's never gotten an acting nomination before.
I don't think Globes matter. They don't matter.
But back to Cooper, though, I was happy about the Cooper nomination because he's so great in Licorice Pizza. And I know it's a small role, and we've seen actors. Dude, Hopkins won Best Actor for Silence of the Lambs for 16 minutes of screen time. So it's like, you have to, you can't discount. He got supporting for what, less than 10 minutes? For
sure, but
Cooper?
this isn't Hannibal Lecter. I'm
not saying, but screen time doesn't matter.
For sure. Like, yeah. If you have that much of an impact, you can overlook minimal screen. I wish he was getting it for Nightmare Alley, to be honest with you.
He's great in Nightmare Alley, but he's lead, and the leading actors too much. But like Licorice Pizza, dude, you can't tell me you don't walk away from that movie and not remember that performance. It's outstanding. It's for sure. So great.
And let's wrap up real fast with an outstanding performance by a female actor in a supporting role. Ruth Negga is getting in for Passing. Kirsten Dunst gets in for Power of the Dog. Ariana DeBose gets in for West Side Story, the only West Side Story recognition. It could be, potentially, I forget. Cate Blanchett is in for Nightmare Alley, and Katrina Balfe is in for Belfast.
Does it surprise you guys that Mass has gotten nothing? Like, I really thought Mass might have a showing at SAG, because that's such a saggy type of film.
It is,
and
definitely.
I at least thought Ann Dowd.
So what happened? Do you think not enough people saw it? They didn't get it into the hands of enough people? Yeah. I remember, this is really weird to do it this way, but that was the first screener, or one of the first screeners that we got.
Yeah.
Does it hurt to be early? Do people forget you? Do people forget you?
What's funny is, isn't Mass the definition of an ensemble?
Yeah, absolutely.
That movie is literally an ensemble piece.
And everyone in it is at the top of their game.
Yeah.
Top of their game.
But, I mean, as we all know, a movie doesn't need to be popular or have box office success to be an awards player. I mean, like, films like The Hurt Locker and The Artist, films that end up winning Best Picture, didn't make a ton of money at the box office considering, like, the massive blockbusters. So, while Mass... we could argue sometimes, like, does King Richard have the momentum to go into award season if no one saw it? I mean, people saw it, but it wasn't like a massive box office or a huge success. But it really comes down to, and it actually saddens me as I get older and we work in this business more, to learn about how much of it is truly business. And how much of it is...
There's a reason they call it campaign. It's
truly campaigning. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's no real difference than politics. I mean, in terms of, like, when you go off on a campaign for an election, it's kind of weird. Like, it's almost like you hope that they'll get it right. But it really comes down to campaigning, how strong the studio is. I mean, one of the greatest things that we ever saw in terms of a campaign, you'd have to argue, would be Shakespeare in Love, beating Saving Private Ryan. I mean, that campaign was insane. And, like, the idea of that movie winning is purely based on campaigning, I would argue. And I'm not even going to say the gentleman's name who was behind that campaign, because that name doesn't need to be mentioned. But it is, that was a great campaign, at least. We can all say that.
And it's still very much, it's also what's hitting, like, right now. It's not necessarily what was the best movie. It's what is capturing the momentum at the moment, kind of thing, which also is stupid. That's like a horse race. Yeah, it's like a horse race.
Well, La La Land lost steam because it was too much. Mm-hmm. Everyone was like, "Oh, it's winning everything."
Keep going. Yeah.
But
don't forget, I mean, the Oscars at the end of March, so we've got a ways to go.
So those are the SAG nominees that dropped this week. We're going to move on to another segment now, where we're looking ahead to the year of 2022. This is our most anticipated movies of the year. We each picked our 5. We're going to go around the horn, each of us, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we will get to Gabe is going to reveal the ReelBlend collective pick for number 1.
Oh, cool.
At the end of the list. Why, we all have the same number 1?
No, same as our best of.
Oh, you weighted them.
Yes.
You did weighted
Yeah,
points.
Damn it, Sean.
Sorry. Jake, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is The Fabelmans, which is
tell me what
basically
that is.
it's Steven Spielberg's Belfast. It's the movie of him like crafting the story of his childhood and sort of what crafted him into the young boy and the lover of film and the storyteller that he is today. I'm fascinated with the casting, and I am sure it's going to be full of like little Spielberg Easter eggs. Like, he's my favorite director, so him sort of telling in an autobiographical way the story of what made him the best director of all time. I can't not put it on my top 5.
Who is Mark Rylance playing in that? Because I'm assuming that he's in it somehow, some way, shape, or form.
You know what? And if he is, we're all the better for it.
He's playing himself when Spielberg meets Mark Rylance and falls in love with him as an actor.
I loved Mark Rylance in Bridge of Spies.
He was great in Bridge of Spies, but I still think Stallone should have won the Oscar.
That's fair.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Kev, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is Mission Impossible 7.
Yes! It's my number 4.
I have it on my list as 5. Here's the thing. Weirdly enough, I liked Fallout. I didn't love Fallout. I know you guys liked Fallout more than I did. To me, Brad Bird's Ghost Protocol is still my favorite of the franchise, but Rogue Nation was amazing, the 5th one. Macquarie is just someone I don't ever question. I think the guy is just an outstanding action director, but also a great storyteller. And at the end of the day, I guess if you're comparing it to something like what we look forward to in a movie, like for Scream, for example, you look forward to finding out who the killer is going to be. For Mission Impossible, I look forward to finding out what crazy stunts, Cruise is going to do. So, like, how crazy will this get? I'm actually way more excited about this than Top Gun. So for me, this is my number 5. You put Macquarie and Cruise together, another Mission Impossible film. I'm all in. Just take my money. Done. My
number 5 is borderline controversial. I can't wait to see how you guys react to this. It's Avatar 2.
Oh, all right. See, yeah, that doesn't belong on ReelBlend. Come on.
I'll tell you why. No. I have a legitimate reason for picking Avatar 2. It's new Cameron, and I can't bet against Cameron for this reason.
You can't not remember the disappointment of the first Avatar.
But his sequels are always his best.
But I also think he doesn't remember. I think he does not forget the disappointment for the first.
Oh, you think
Avatar.
He's gonna be like, you know what? You guys thought Avatar 1 was bad?
Yeah.
Wait till you see this
one.
No. In a good way.
Yes, in a good way. He's not gonna be like, I'm doubling down on the bad.
No. I think he's gonna go good on purpose to prove us all wrong.
I think I like to believe that that's what he's doing. I think that he's probably tapped into something that he truly believes in. And look, I'm willing to give that franchise one more film. And if it's not good, then we're in trouble for 3, 4, and 5.
If your attitude is, I'm willing to give that franchise one more film after just one film, that's a bad time. That's very early to be saying that already about a franchise.
I've gone back to try to watch that Avatar 1.
Oh, I can't do it. I tried to watch it about a year ago. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'll clarify one thing. You have to understand, like, emotionally for me, like, Terminator 2 changed my life, okay? So, like, Aliens, True Lies, Titanic, dude was on fire in terms of, like, hit after incredible film.
Couldn't be stopped.
And then I sit down for a trailer for Avatar from the director of Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and Titanic, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be insane. He spent 15 years building the technology for these cameras to get the 3D, and then to watch it and get Fern Gully and Pocahontas in 3D. And then, like, I can't tell you how disappointing. That might have been the most disappointed I've ever been in a movie. And it's not that Avatar is the worst movie ever made, but pure emotional disappointment. Sure. I haven't gotten over that. So that's why I have zero.
Are you betting against him?
I'm not betting against Cameron because I think what you're saying is correct. Watch it come out and be a masterpiece. And I have no doubt he will deliver, but I'm still hurt.
Okay.
Still hurt.
Gabe?
Here, before we move off Avatar 2, because spoilers, it doesn't come up again on this list. I will say my one, off-the-wall theory about how this might work. The first one, he spent 10, 15 years building the technology to tell the story. He didn't spend
3 weeks on the script.
Hang on. Okay, let me finish. Exactly. He did not spend 10, 15 years building the story. The technology is built, and it's not that he hasn't continued to innovate on that, but the world is built and the technology is built, and that's what the first one had to establish. And the story clearly took a back seat. He's had 10 years to build a story in the world that he's already established. So I'm not rooting against it. I think it could be exciting.
Listen, the curiosity factor alone puts it at number 5 on my list.
Yeah,
But Sean,
as we get closer to that, I want to know what it is.
they're trying to find an object called unobtainium.
That's the first movie.
I know.
Please.
Yes, I know. Hey, man.
Unobtainium.
The ride in Disney's Animal Kingdom is better than the first movie.
I completely agree with you. It's actually awesome. That ride's amazing.
It's terrific.
Unobtainium.
Number 4.
Never forget.
My number 4 is Killers of the Flower Moon.
Ooh.
A Scorsese movie with DiCaprio and Robert De Niro and Jesse Plemons, and it's a phenomenal story if you're unfamiliar with the story. It's an incredible book. How can you bet against that cast and that director? Is that
getting a theatrical release, or is it streaming?
I know it's Apple, right? But I'm sure that it has to be at least some sort of theatrical release to get Oscars.
Okay. But probably what they did with like Macbeth, where it went to like a couple of theaters.
Yep.
Okay. Kev, where you at?
And I think Macbeth might have been a hybrid because I think A24 did the theatrical run for that, and then that's what I'm hoping we'll see more of is like that hybrid release, a couple weeks in theaters first. My number 4 is Doctor Strange into the
in the Multiverse of Madness.
In the Multiverse of Madness. That's a really hard title to say.
I know.
Well, first of all, a lot of reasons why this is number 4 on my list. One, I am a little upset about the Derrickson thing. I think Scott Derrickson did such a brilliant job with the first one. So there's a curiosity here that I have with what Raimi will do. But after rewatching Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, especially 1 and 2, I couldn't be more excited to see what he does now with modern day effects. I just hope that he still stays as practical as he can, because even with the new Spider-Man, they digitally did Doc Ock's tentacles, whatever you want to call them. And so, but they look so much better, I think, in the original practical effects from the second movie. So Raimi being on board is what makes this interesting to me. I mean, I think it would have been higher up had it been Derrickson. And you're talking to somebody who, I adore Sam Raimi, man. Evil Dead 1, 2, Army of Darkness, Darkman. I love him. So it's 4 on my list because I'm excited about it. I love the first one. I still think that the first one has some of the best visual effects in the MCU. I wish Derrickson was on board, but I think Raimi's going to play with it in a way that hopefully there's horror elements to it. I really hope that because Derrickson's a horror filmmaker too, and that movie
that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to make this a horror movie, apparently.
But like, dude, if you watch Strange's crash in the first movie, it's brutal, brutal. So I just hope that Raimi kind of plays with that horror quality as well. So that's my number 4.
Cool. My 4 is Mission 7 as well. Listen, I'll be there for that franchise on day 1 until it stops delivering. Yeah. So, and also we watched at CinemaCon the making of the jump off the cliff into a paraglide. Forget it. It looks insane. So I can't wait for that. Jake, number 3.
My number 3 is The Flash. If only just because we're getting Michael Keaton back as Batman.
Yeah.
That's something I never thought would ever happen, and I cannot wait to see him on the big screen suited up as Batman again.
Snyder bots call it the flush. They can't wait for it to die. They're pretty creative, aren't they? Kev, where are you with 4? 3.
My number 3 is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Oh, I almost picked that.
First of all, 90s Nick Cage. I know this won't be all 90s Nick Cage, but 90s Nick Cage.
Your No Way Home.
This is my No Way Home. It really is. I mean, if there's a point in this movie where he becomes Castor Troy and Stanley Goodspeed from The Rock, I'm done.
Oh, he's definitely becoming Castor Troy.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Definitely.
Because he walks in the house and there's that Castor Troy
mannequin,
life-size mannequin. Yeah. And he goes, I'll give you $20,000 for it or something like that. And
well, first he says it's horrifying.
Dude,
I'll give you $20,000 for it.
There's a point in this movie where he pulls out his golden guns from Face Off. Or there's a Goodspeed reference where he's doing the flare guns with the green flare smoke.
Have to do the Rock thing. They have to do the thing from The Rock.
There's so many 90s Cage. I mean, if they do Raising Arizona, I'm gonna freak out. If they do, I mean, there's so much. It's literally the perfect idea. I can't think of a better idea for a movie than hiring Nick Cage for a birthday party to play all of his other roles again. I mean, it's so great. Yeah.
I'm in. My number 3 is Nope by Jordan Peele, just because it's Jordan Peele. Honestly, have no clue what it's about. That's the best way to go into one of his movies. Similar to the Mission movies, I can, I'll be there until he stops delivering, and even he'll get a pass of a couple of films from me before I think that he's truly whiffed. You tell me that he's got a film coming out and that it's called Nope. I'm in 100%. That's my number 3. So it's gonna be awful for Google searches, by the way, though.
Yes.
His movies so far have been Us, Get Out.
Get Out.
They're terrible for Google searches.
Great titles.
Yeah. Nope. All right.
Nope.
That's my 3. Jake, you're at 2.
My number 2 is Mission Impossible 7. I think it is, honestly, I think it is the most reliable franchise in Hollywood right now. I think it is a series that is, whether or not you disagree about 5 was better than 4, was better than 6, you can at least, it's doing this. Mm-hmm. It's moving. And how many series can say that by their 6th going on 7th installment?
Sure.
Everything you guys said, I echo. I just absolutely cannot wait to experience it on the biggest screen possible. In
a perfect world, those two guys are making that many Jack Reacher movies, though. The Jack Reacher characters in books are fantastic. But they're movies so good. The first one was really good. The first one was really good that McQuarrie made. I liked it a lot.
Was it
fine?
Oh, you two hate good movies. Kev, what's your number 2?
That's McQuarrie, Way of the Gun, iconic. That's his best movie.
Good opening.
Oh, that opening with Del Toro and Philippi. Oh God, what a great!
It's a great opening, but then it also keeps going.
It keeps going.
Then it tails off a little bit.
When Del Toro dives, or is it no? It's Philippi dives into that pit of broken glass.
Yeah.
Oh God, he's like pulling it out of his arm. How's the baby? I'll never forget.
90s practical effects like that are pretty great.
Yeah.
Like, there's some really brutal, things that people did in early 90s movies.
Speaking of the 90s, if you're not watching Yellow Jackets, watch Yellow Jackets.
Yellow Jackets!
It's amazing. All right,
really
my number 2 is The Batman.
Oh, The Bat.
I mean, here's the thing. First of all, I want to address the ridiculous online controversy about the rating of this film. Anybody out there who's mad this is not rated R, just watch The Dark Knight and just please shut your mouth. Because, I mean, this is
or just have common sense.
You don't need, I mean, any movie can be violent.
You can get away with so much with a PG-13 these days. Like that line has been stretched. Yeah.
Right. But also, like, you can, like, Dune is PG-13. It's pretty violent. But what you end up doing is you just don't show blood, or you show minimal blood. Like Live Free, Die Hard, they got away with it. It was super violent, but it was PG-13.
Wait, Die Hard?
Live Free, Die Hard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the fourth one.
And
I like the fourth one.
Me too. But Dark Knight is case in point here. There's no question. I mean, if you watch The Dark Knight, that movie feels R-rated. It always has. It's just a PG-13 film.
Should get an R for the pencil in the eye trick. That
but
alone
you don't
is an R.
see it. You don't see it though.
Yeah.
But it's implied.
Yeah.
But that's why it's not R, though.
I know.
You can apply a lot.
Exactly. And also,
so
like, I think I don't think anybody. I don't think I ever thought the Batman was going to be R. I mean, I just always assumed.
Yeah, neither did I. That's why I don't understand where everyone's coming from. Like, did you all seriously, like, were you all sitting around excited for it to be announced? As, like, who thought
never
it was going to be rated R?
Was Zack Snyder's Justice League R-rated?
Yes.
Yes.
That's why people are
Well,
upset.
it was unrated.
Okay.
Wasn't it unrated?
No, was it?
It was R.
It got
was
an R?
officially R.
Yeah.
That's why people are upset, because they got an R. That's all it is.
I mean, it's so funny because, like, the tragedy of Macbeth, for example, is rated R. And
Is it?
It's just for violence because they show all the blood. So, like, anytime that you see someone,
so.
if you show a throat being slit, or you show like a knife going into someone's body, like those are moments where you like.
But it's black and white, isn't that how Quentin got away from?
No, because if you watch someone's throat slit open and blood come out, you can't do that in a PG-13. Not that graphically. Well, it's like famous, but the Batman, for example, no questions, my number 2. Matt Reeves is one of the most exciting filmmakers working today. I mean, from the moment I saw Cloverfield and obviously the work he did with the Apes films, He's just an astounding filmmaker. Also, he did the impossible. He literally made a remake of Let the Right One In, and I thought it was just as good. I loved Let Me In, and I thought he crushed that remake. And that's a really hard film to remake because it was a brilliant Swedish film, but The Batman's my number 2. And I'm excited about Giacchino's score, obviously. So
my number 2 is Babylon by Damien Chazelle. Again, it's Damien working in old Hollywood with an incredible cast that I know includes Margot Robbie and Brad Pitt. Don't know a whole heck of a lot about it. He's keeping the details of it under wraps, but if you tell me that Damien's doing something about old Hollywood, it's really no one better to hop on board with that. So I can't wait for Babylon. That is my number 2. And Jakey, your number 1 most anticipated film of 2022.
The Batman.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, everything about it. I mean, Batman is my favorite superhero, if we want to call him that, but everything about what Matt Reeves seems to be doing with this character, I'm 100% in. I know the sort of the elevator pitch that everyone keeps using is that it looks like if Seven invaded the world of Batman, and I don't know how that could sound more awesome.
Yes,
like that's a great
tagline.
Yeah, like
particularly
Paul Dano
like
as
the
Riddler.
street scenes, like when they go into the apartments. That's kind of what. Yeah.
Or for me, it's the it's the Riddler. It's Paul Dano. It like looks like a psychotic serial killer out of a David Fincher film.
Yeah.
It looks absolutely phenomenal, and I'm sold. I haven't seen a clip or a scene or a image yet that I didn't go like, oh yes. Like
the only thing that kept the Batman off my list of 5.
Is it really off your list? I kept thinking it was going to be your 1.
No, well, you'll know my 1.
Wait, you have Batman over? You have Avatar 2 over the Batman?
I do. Just for this reason.
Who are you?
I feel like Batman has reached the saturation point. Like
You've reached the saturation point.
There's a ton of Batman.
There's a ton of you.
And I think Matt Reeves can make it really interesting. I don't doubt that it's going to be entertaining. I just, if I'm picking the 5 movies that like I need to see next year,
Spider-Man's your number 1, isn't it?
Another Batman isn't necessarily, the movie that I need to see. So
yeah, tell me more about an animated version of a character we just saw a month ago.
Yeah, the one you're gonna choose was more saturated than
go ahead.
Batman.
Yeah, tell me more.
Anyway,
tell me more.
Kev, what's your number 1?
My number 1 is no questions, Nope.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Nice.
I mean, to this day, I think Get Out is one of the greatest scripts ever written. Get Out is a masterpiece beyond words. And then Us was insane and incredible and so well done. And Hoytman is shooting this movie, who shot Dunkirk, he shot Interstellar, he shot Tenet. It's going to be insane. I mean, just the title alone, the fact that that Jordan's directing it, I believe Hoyt shot partially IMAX on this one too, which is really fascinating to me. Because Jordan hasn't done IMAX yet. I could be wrong. I remember reading that somewhere, but especially if you bring in someone like Hoytema, I mean, I feel like I just can't wait, man.
What was the teaser poster? The teaser poster was like some big balloon.
It was like blue, right? It was like I'm trying to remember now.
Something
Jordan
in the clouds, like a kite or a balloon of some sort.
Yeah. The title's perfect.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like
we're all picturing that moment in a horror movie, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Where something happens and you go, nope.
And turn around and go the other way.
Nope.
Gabe, can you look up when that opens while I give my number 1?
When Nope opens?
Correct.
Nope.
Yes.
I cannot.
Just Google Nope.
Mine is Across the Spider-Verse, Part 1, of course.
Okay. Tell me about how long it's been since we've gotten a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, when was the last time we had a Spider-Man movie?
Oh, I'm sorry. The last time they made an animated Spider-Man movie, it won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature.
When was the last time we had Spider-Man in theaters?
Did the last Batman movie win an Oscar? Because I don't remember any Batman movies winning any Oscars. So
tell that to Heath Ledger.
Did he play Batman in that movie?
A Batman movie? You said a Batman movie.
No, a performance in that movie won. Anyway,
Sean, question though.
Just right in the face.
Yes.
Would Babylon be your number 1 if I told you that it starred and was produced by Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Because Tobey Maguire is in it, and he produced it.
I mean, Tobey Maguire's in it, yeah.
He produced it.
Yes.
And John Watts just took over. Yeah.
Tobey's my least favorite Spider-Man. So no, that wouldn't help in the least bit. I'm sorry, what'd you say for Nope?
Nope
June?
comes
John?
out July 22nd.
That makes sense. All right, Gabe, what is the collective ReelBlend number one
Pretty
choice?
easy to do the math here. The Batman is our number one most anticipated movie
ridiculous
of the year.
Didn't even make my list.
Pretty quick turnaround. Well, I will say your list is the other four. So there's that.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. So if I were to give our full top five, we have the Batman at number one. Quick turnaround. It's coming out pretty soon. So we'll know if this year is going to be a banger or not, according to ReelBlend. Number two is Nope. Mission Impossible 7 at number 3. Across the Spider-Verse at number 4. And Babylon at number 5.
Terrific. All right.
Can I make a quick statement about Dune?
Sure.
Oh, you a PSA?
Oh, yeah.
A Dune
That's
PSA.
right. Yes, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you.
This is a PSA.
Those are our most anticipated of the year. Now a Dune PSA, which I will give you a time limit of only a few minutes to do this.
I'm very upset about this. Now, I want to clarify, there are a lot of things happening in the world right now that are actually problems.
Yes.
So,
this is one of them.
No, this is just something that really upset me, but this is just purely from a fan perspective. I got the Dune 4K or Blu-ray 4K in the mail, and I went to pop it in because Dune's been available to like get on iTunes for a while now. And I just refused. I waited to buy it because I knew the iTunes version wasn't going to have the IMAX shots. So Greg Fraser and Denis Villeneuve shot a huge majority of Dune in IMAX. Like I saw it in 143 at a space museum in Virginia, and I would argue that 70 to 80% of the film blew up to IMAX. When Christopher Nolan releases a Blu-ray, like The Dark Knight or Interstellar or Dunkirk, they preserve the IMAX aspect ratio for the release. So if you go back and listen to our Damien Chazelle interview for his Netflix series that we had him on for, he was telling us a story about being home during the pandemic and wanting to watch Dunkirk, but he only had it on iTunes, so he couldn't get the IMAX aspect ratio shifts. And for people who don't know what I'm referring to, when you watch a film that's in widescreen, if a filmmaker shoots IMAX, it'll blow up to the IMAX and then go back down to the widescreen. It happens in theaters. The Dune release that I have in my hand upstairs does not have that. The entire film is widescreen, and I cannot believe this. Like, this is like genuinely shocking to me, because not only was the film filmed in that format for a good majority of it, unless they re-release it, it's lost.
But this means
I don't understand this.
Denis had to sign off on this. There's no way they released this without his approval.
So
they took it out of theaters without his approval. So
right. So I'll tell you a story real fast. Yeah. I went to an Oscars party in LA a few years back for First Man, and Damien Chazelle was there, and the cast, Ryan Gosling, Claire Foy. And I went up to Damien, and I was talking to him about the release. I'm like, dude, please tell me that your Blu-ray release is going to have the IMAX jump when the door opens when they're on the moon. He didn't even know. He was actually like, oh, I hope they do it. I mean, I'm hoping they'll do it. And then finally the Blu-ray comes out, and thank gosh, it jumps to the IMAX aspect ratio from the widescreen when the door opens.
So they don't know.
So Chazelle didn't know, or he was hoping that it would be there. So with Denis, I don't understand this, because Nolan gets the treatment. This also happened to Brad Bird, by the way, for Ghost Protocol. We don't have a physical release of Bird's IMAX shots for the Burj Khalifa or any of the IMAX scenes in Mission Impossible 4. This is like, and I know this sounds like a minuscule thing to bring up, but for a movie that's shot like this in Greg Fraser's work, seeing that on 143, it was a game-changing experience. And everybody should have the ability to see those IMAX shots. And right now, you do not anywhere have the ability to do that. Generally, it's on the physical disc. They didn't put it on the streaming, and they didn't put it on the physical disc. So right now, we're living in a world where all of that IMAX footage no longer exists. You had to have seen it in theaters.
Could it be possible?
That's insane.
Could it be possible that this is just marketing, in the sense of marketing and sort of merchandising?
It's so inside baseball, though.
But no, I'm saying like it's for decades they've sort of monetized the director's cut that comes out later. It's its own release. It has this, that, and the other. We'll let the director do this, and it has its own expenses for that. But it's a whole other product that they use to get another wave of revenue off of the same thing. Could it be that that's what we're starting to see, is that because people are starting to get interested in IMAX, this is the 4K release, and then in a couple months they're going to be like, now with enhanced IMAX experience at home, like.
Or I'll tell you what, and I mean, this is a long way off, but what if they're just anticipating a set when the 2 Dunes are out?
Okay,
right?
but the
it is weird though that the 4K release would not have it though. It should have
Yeah. Also, so HBO Max, when they and this last thing I'll say, when they put Dune on HBO Max, kudos to Warner Brothers, because for Wonder Woman 84, Patty shot 65 mil IMAX for that opening sequence. And HBO Max did open up for that open sequence and then went back down to widescreen. The Dune release on HBO Max didn't even have the IMAX shots. So I don't know if they just copied that release and put that out as the 4K. But I cannot believe, considering that we're in a pandemic and not everybody was able to leave their houses to see Dune. I mean, Gabe, you saw it in IMAX and you know it was insane. Like, the IMAX release of that film is the true release of the movie. And now we're living in a world where the 4K does not have that. And I know it's a minuscule thing, but as a fan of that film, that movie deserves better. That's all I want to say.
We are also living in a world where there is a new Hotel Transylvania. And it's called Transformania.
Makes me feel better. Thank you.
And it's going to be released in full IMAX ratio. You're going to get the whole thing. It's going to blow right up.
That actually is a 185 release, which is cool. I think it's the first 185 they released for that movie, which is almost full screen. Yeah.
Who has seen it? Anyone seen it? Hotel Transylvania? Hotel T? All right. Tragedy of Macbeth. Both of you have seen it. Kev, give me your quick reaction to Tragedy.
I want to toss this to Jake, because I think Jake and I are on the same page, and I just talked a ton about Dune. I think Jake and I are probably going to be in agreement here. I think this is an incredibly beautiful film. It's shot with the 1:37 aspect ratio, which is the boxed in 4:3 Academy ratio, essentially. And it's Joel Cohen. There's no Ethan this time. And it is, Carter Burwell did the score, who's an absolute legend. But for me, and I don't know, and I feel like this is going to make me sound ignorant. I love Shakespeare in general, just in terms of like what Shakespeare has done for the world in terms of literature and storytelling. I have a hard time listening to that dialogue and following it. And I don't mean to sound ignorant, but I had a hard time keeping up with the story because I couldn't follow a lot of the dialogue. So visually, it's amazing. Performance-wise, it's amazing. Just wasn't for me.
Jakey?
Yeah, it felt like homework. I respected it more than I liked it. I loved each individual part.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you really have to listen to what they're saying. And luckily I was familiar with the story of Macbeth going in, so I kind of knew what I was looking for. Cinematography is gorgeous, direction's well done, the sets are really cool. I love Denzel's performance. But it felt like homework. It felt like I was doing homework while watching a movie.
And there's nothing wrong with leaning into a film and trying to understand the dialogue. Like, one of the best examples of that would be West Side Story, where he didn't subtitle the Spanish because you lean in and kind of understand it. But in this case, the Shakespearean dialogue, I feel like I sound ignorant, but I just didn't follow it. Jacob, you had a hard time too,
yeah,
right?
There's an interview with Denzel where he talks about even when he was reading Macbeth that he had to buy, I don't know if you guys were in high school and ever bought these, that No Fear Shakespeare, where it has Shakespeare on the left and the translation on the right. And if the man in the movie needed that...
I turned it off after 20 minutes. I just couldn't do it.
So you don't know what the tragedy is?
It's a tedious experience, but it's gorgeously framed. Beautifully shot.
Let's get to Scream, the big movie that's opening up this week, and the continuation in the trend of legacy characters returning to franchises and sort of breathing new life into them. I am ranking this one because I think that the guys in Radio Silence are as dedicated and appreciative of the model that Wes Craven started. I'm putting this right alongside Bad Boys for Life, which is probably going to sound strange, but I think that the two dudes who directed Bad Boys for Life worship Michael Bay and know what makes a Bad Boys movie work. You might not like Bad Boys, but those guys made a terrific Bad Boys movie. I think Radio Silence guys know exactly what works about Scream, and they made a terrific Scream movie that, to me, and I know everyone's playing the ranking game, but I put it above the sequels. I think it's 1 and then 5, and and then 2, 3, and 4. To me, 2 is probably higher, 3 and 4 are close to each other. But I think this one is a great continuation of 1, probably 2, and then this one too, in terms of the story that it tells. It finds a really great way to bring the legacy characters back without making it forced. We have been talking about in big franchises that I won't mention because apparently if you mention them now, they're spoilery. But there are some that try to bring back old characters and it doesn't work. And then there are others that bring back old characters and it works really, really well. In this one, I'm going to say that it works really, really well. But I also found that the new characters were really interesting. I thought it does all the things that a Scream movie is supposed to do well, which means it has very surprising and gory kills. It has a lot of really good meta humor and meta commentary about horror movies and the way that horror movies are supposed to play out. And if I give it a knock for anything, it's that the structure of it is essentially the first movie. It's just Scream. They're doing Scream again. And would I want them to see them go in some wild new direction? Maybe. I don't know. But this one worked for while I was watching it.
It's like Scream in the same way that Force Awakens was like A New Hope.
Yes. Yeah.
I disagree with that, actually. I think this, as much as I love Force Awakens, it's essentially A New Hope in terms of story. My argument is that this Scream enhances the first Scream because that's the whole point of it. Is like it's completely meta and aware, and it reinvents the meta style of Scream. And in my opinion, it basically does what Scream did in '96 for today.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to add is you compare it to The Force Awakens, but it is commenting on the likes of The Force Awakens in the way that they do their structures.
For sure.
That's, I think, the benefit that it gets is it goes, that's the point, is we're trying to make a comment about this requel sort of idea that is modern.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I liked it a lot. I think I'm probably like a 4 out of 5. I really had a great time with it. I don't love the Scream movies the way you guys do. Didn't grow up on them necessarily. I think I was more into the Elm Streets and the Friday the 13th movies. But Ghostface is a fun killer, and it's great to see the Legacy cast back again. So solid recommendation for me, 4 out of 5. Kev, I think you probably liked it a little bit more than that.
Oh, dude, I loved it. I will never forget seeing the first one when I was 12. And there was something, and I remember getting that VHS and watching it over and over. Remember on the cover of the VHS, it had the review, like clever, hip, and scary, or whatever it was down at on the bottom of it. This film is exactly what I wanted in a Scream film after the first one. Like it was everything the first one did, but in a reinventing way in itself. It's not the first one again. It's honoring the legacy of the first one, yet setting a tone and a brutal tone. I think it's the most violent, no question, out of all 5 of them.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask one quick question. Because other filmmakers take over these sequels, is it easier for them to honor the legacies of the first movies as opposed to, let's say Wes Craven was still around and wanted to do another Scream? Would it be really hard for Wes Craven to honor what Wes Craven had already done? You know what I mean?
He addresses Nightmare on Elm Street in the first Scream, so like he's not above referencing himself.
Wes Carpenter. Remember the Wes Carpenter joke? Yeah.
So it's almost like I feel like a new generation or new filmmakers almost have to come to these franchises and as fans and honor. Like the one I keep going back to is Cobra Kai. The guys who do Cobra Kai are addicted to the Karate Kid.
But I also think a big part of it too, to your point with Cobra Kai, because I think that's a great comparison, is Pat Morita has passed away and Wes Craven has passed away. So I think there's an extra level of kind of tipping your cap a little bit when such an anchor in these series is no longer with us. It's one thing to like pay tribute to the work that came before. I think it's another thing to honor a person who has passed on.
Okay.
Yeah, when I walked out of Scream 5, it's so funny you bring up Bad Boys. That's the first thing I said, was that this reminded me of like the fans who made Bad Boys 3, because Bad Boys 3 was genuinely an awesome Bad Boys film. This is on a different level though. I really believe that they just did such a brilliant job of like bringing like that movie, the new movie, like the first one, is always a step or two ahead of you as an audience member. I'll give an example in a vague term without spoiling anything, but like for example, if there's a character who gets shot or something, right, in a movie, right, and then they walk away and you always say to yourself, wait, why aren't they going to go back and shoot that person in the head just like to finish the kill, because they're always going to come back, which was a joke or a line that was in the first movie. This movie is always with you when you're having those thoughts, and then it goes, oh wait, hold on, let me go back and do this. And it's not in a way where it's almost like it's self-aware, but it's not aware, because at the end of the day, what I like about this film is that it is brutal and has stakes. It's not just like a parody or a remake of the original. It is a brutal R-rated horror film with genuine scares. The opening is incredible, but at the same time, it's this beautiful meta element. It's basically like Jake and I were talking about this about Matrix. Like Matrix 4 basically tried to do what this did, but this did it so much better, because Scream was all about reinventing horror. The first one was. To me, this reinvents it again in a beautiful way. I love this movie, and it's incredibly shot, incredibly brutal, and it takes you for a ride. Like, you think you know who the killer is, and then they convince you that's not the person, and then you're flipping around the whole movie waiting. It's wild, man. I loved it.
Jakey, what'd you love about it?
I loved it because there's an energy in this one that I feel like was missing from the past few installments. Obviously, I think Wes Craven was obviously very much into the first Scream, and I think Wes Craven was very much into Scream 2. I think Scream 2 has a lot of energy to it. There are some sequences of Scream 2 that are just unbelievably well shot. If you remember the sequence with Neve Campbell when she goes to college and there's that play that she's a part of, like this Greek tragedy, and she keeps seeing Ghostface. And I love that scene.
Didn't he say that there were bits of because they were made so closely back to back? Yeah, that there were bits of Scream 2 that were scrapped from Scream 1. So like it very much has that, not literally,
it wouldn't surprise me.
I think I read
that.
That they were bits that never made it out of the scripting phase for 1, and they were like, well, let's use it in 2 because it's good.
The new one's the best since 1. That's the last thing I wanted to add.
Neve Campbell climbing over the killer in the car is the best sequence in any Scream movie, in my opinion.
And I think, honestly, I don't think Wes Craven's heart was in 3 and 4. I don't think it's made with the excitement and the energy in which he made 1 and 2. So that being said, I love this new Scream 5, as we'll call it. I think, to me, a perfect Scream trilogy is 1, 2, and 5. I think, honestly, I really think you can ignore 3 and 4. I personally don't think you need to see 4. I don't think there's anything about 4 that's necessary. Other than there is one character in 5 that was also in 4, but if you don't know she's in 4, it's not going to impact how you feel about the character.
Is that Marley Shelton's character?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't know her.
So I very much have a soft spot for Scream 2 in my heart. So for me, I would rank them Scream 1, Scream 2, then Scream 5. But I very much love this is a Scream movie I never thought we were ever going to get again, which excites me.
It's exciting is the word. Like, I haven't felt that excited in a movie in terms of horror in a long time. Like, I mean, obviously, and the movie is so aware of current horror. Like, they mentioned elevated horror, like Jordan Peele. Elevated horror. Smart. It's so smart. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what we're in the middle of. You know, that's the trend now. Yeah. The Hereditaries and
which are addressed heightened horror.
This is all elevated horror, I would argue.
Yeah, elevated horror.
I don't know. I think it's proudly schlock horror.
Yeah, I think it's a because that's the thing too, is that we also have to acknowledge that in the same way that, you know, people whenever a horror film's really good, they want to call it a thriller.
That's the joke, though.
This is just a great slasher movie.
That's the thing, though, is that elevated horror is not a real thing. It's just a pretentious.
It's just a horror movie.
It's just a pretentious thing. Sure. Great horror that people don't qualify as elevated horror are still talking. Are still having a conversation with society.
Yes.
You know,
but Get Out is on a different level, though. Get Out is no.
It's just a great. Beyond. It's just a great horror movie.
It's a great horror.
Calling it elevated horror just lets you put it into a different class.
It's a disservice to the word horror that if a movie gets to be too good, that you want to take it out of that genre.
No,
like if like Hereditary or The Witch. It's a horror movie. The Witch is a horror movie, just like Get Out is a horror movie, just like A Nightmare on Elm Street is a horror movie, just like Jaws is a horror. These are all horror movies.
Get Out is a different horror movie than Friday the 13th and Halloween.
But they're horror movies nonetheless. And to say that something is elevated and something else isn't, I think is a slap in the face to horror movie. Yeah.
No, No, it's not.
It absolutely
There's a
is.
difference between like mindless action and great action films.
But you don't
like
call
Mad Max.
But you don't call Mad Max
versus-
elevated action. By definition, by calling it
But
elevated.
you never have. You never have.
I never have, but I mean, but I do think Get Out is on a different
And you
tier.
are a man who talks about how like we have to see Oscar films
Oh
differently.
no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that Get Out is a different level. It's a different level of horror. That is a completely different level of horror than like.
I think that's a slap in the face.
I don't think so at all.
genre.
I think Scream's elevated horror. I think Scream
because
is elevated
to
horror.
me what you're saying is a very smart, good horror film is unlike everything else in the genre.
No, why can't?
That's exactly what you're saying.
Why can't certain movies in a genre be different levels, different tiers?
But why can't you just say it's a really good horror film?
Okay, that's fine. I mean, Get Out is a great horror movie.
Here's the thing, though.
But
here's the
saying
difference.
elevated separates it from
Let me
the genre.
clarify.
It deserves to be
The
separated.
problem with the elevated horror tag is people are treating it like a genre. They're saying like.
No.
No, that's
Like a different area
That's
of
the problem.
They are.
They're saying elevated horror is a genre. If you have to be smart to understand
consider
this,
that.
yeah, I know, and that's why I'm trying to. That's why having the argument with you is because people use it as if instead of saying slasher, they say elevated because of X, Y, and Z reason. It can be elevated, quote unquote, if it has added weight as far as its social commentary.
If it's from A24.
Or if it's from A24, or it's shot 4:3, this black and white or what, like it can be quote unquote elevated because it takes itself more seriously, but it is not a genre of horror because to what Jake's saying, it is putting down everything else by saying that like, Friday the 13th and Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street weren't saying anything. They were just trying to be crazy, and that is lesser than. That's what.
And I want to clarify.
I know you don't feel that way.
I'm not
I'm saying
saying that.
that's how people
Yeah.
use it. They use it as if it were a genre, which is pointless.
Yeah, I'm just saying that like Get Out was on a different level than I'd ever seen in the horror genre. I think elevated is a proper term because it elevated the genre to a different level. I thought it brought horror to a different level. Because Get Out was a film that I don't know, to me.
Right, but you're describing
enhanced.
it. You're describing it as your personal experience with it. I'm not saying I disagree or anyone should disagree that Get Out is incredible on the scale of horror films. But you're talking about it's elevated in the sense of its quality and how much you liked it. That is a subjective definition, whereas the hashtag film Twitter or whatever culture is using it as if it is this new genre of horror that millennials
And I believe
invented.
that as much as I love Get Out deserves to be in the exact same spot of blockbuster as Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
Well, but because the thing that's triggering this conversation is the quote-unquote film Twitter that Gabe is referencing doesn't want to say that they like the Nightmare on Elm Streets and the Friday the 13th. So when they do like a horror movie, horror movie,
that's not where
they
I'm at.
call it something different. They're like, I can like The Witch because it's elevated horror.
Again, to highlight,
But it's
Kevin
not.
is pointing out the subjective
That's
nature.
pretentious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
that's all I wanted to highlight.
That's the point.
Is the difference.
That's the point. Is that them using it that way. Yeah.
I just think I consider elevated just what is what it did for the genre. I think Get Out brought a new.
I mean, but you could
level
say
to
that
the
about. I
genre.
mean, like Nightmare on Elm Street did that in the early '80s. No one calls it elevated horror, but at the time,
I was
the
back in
original
the
Scream.
80s. Back in the 80s, I was calling Nightmare on Elm Street elevated
Scream
horror.
1 is elevated horror.
God.
To be fair, I had a.
But then at a certain
Pocket
point, then we
protector.
just call them really good horror movies. They're
That's
really
fine.
good. It's a great horror movie.
I'm just saying that Get Out was a different movie. It was
Where is
different.
Leprechaun? Leprechaun elevated horror?
Ask Jennifer Aniston, who wants to completely ignore that film.
Let's get to the blend game this week, which is based on the late and great icon Wes Craven. We're playing hashtag Wes Craven blend. Jake, I feel like we have to start with you as our resident horror fanatic. Where would you go for Wes Craven's favorite movie, or your favorite movie of Wes Craven?
This was tough. I'm going to be honest with you. But I can't choose anything other than A Nightmare on Elm Street. I just think I have a soft spot for 80s monster slasher films.
Elevated horror.
I'm going to punch you in the face. And I think Freddy is the best of the best in that he is so tethered to an actual person's performance. Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, I think, is one of the great horror performances of all time. I love sort of the weird, wacky ass directions the genre went, but it all came from Wes's original idea of seeing this man outside of his window one day in a striped sweater when he was a child. And the fact that and that it collaborated with him reading these articles about these people in South America who would wake up screaming and then die. So he took this memory of this man outside of his window when he was a child and these articles he read about these people in South America and created what I think is one of the most everlasting fears, which is a complete loss of control. And that's what's terrifying about Nightmare on Elm Street, is that once you slip into unconsciousness, like you're in his playground. And despite the fact that, like, yes, he does get a little wacky and funny later on in the films, Freddy in the first film is horrifying. He's absolutely horrifying. I literally have a framed glove hanging on my wall not 10 feet from where I sit. So as much as I do love Scream, and I love Scream with every fiber of my being, for me, it's about a Nightmare on Elm Street.
Would you say that it elevated the genre, Jake?
It did.
I'm gonna elevate my fist into your face.
I am also picking Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, you are. I'll take my fist back now.
It is it's one of my favorite horror films of all time. The first one is magnificent. It does all the things. As is
his third. His third is also very good.
Dream Warriors is terrific. Yes, I like that as well too. It does all the things that personally I like horror movies to do. I'm not all in on the A24 horrors. I would much rather see a branded serial killer with a really clever gimmick. So I do love Ghostface. I do love the hockey mask of Jason, and it's hard to beat the glove with the knives that Freddy has. To have someone whose skin is charred because the parents of the neighborhood set the school on fire, and he was in the basement, trapped in the basement. Terrific origin story. But just the fact, like the concept of you have to stay awake in order to avoid him, and it's virtually impossible to stay awake, is as terrifying as it gets. Like, here's just the primal. Here's the way to avoid this guy. Don't fall asleep. Like, you can't do that for any long period of time. And if you think about some of the most memorable imagery from that, you think of the glove coming out of the bathtub as Nancy's falling asleep, and Johnny Depp, getting sucked into the mattress, and then the blood spurting up into the thing, and Tina as she's getting rolled around her room, getting sliced to different to bits. Terrific. Just an outstanding film. Showed to me what an amazing horror storyteller that Wes is, and it's kind of remarkable that he was able to kind of reinvent and launch an equally successful, and as a influential horror franchise in Scream in his own, in addition to all the other great films that he did. So I almost went Red Eye, which is also terrific.
That was one of the best teaser trailers of all time.
I went so good.
Do you remember the teaser where they set it up like a rom-com?
Yeah.
Did they really?
It starts out as a rom-com, and like Cillian Murphy sits down next to Rachel McAdams, and it's like, you never know who you'll sit next to on a plane, and it makes it seem like they're gonna fall in love, and then all of a sudden, it just takes this really dark turn, and then just says, like, boom, filmed by Wes Craven.
That's awesome.
That's a testament to his name by that point, that all you had to do was say a film by Wes Craven to make you go, oh, this isn't a wrong. Aside from Sound of no, what's the music movie he did with Meryl Streep? Music of the Heart.
Music of the Heart. Yes.
Yeah.
Kev, where'd you go?
Man, I can't not go with Scream. I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, but this is a favorite. All right, Gabe's with me on this one.
I'm with you, Kev.
I mean, at the end of the day, Nightmare on Elm Street is iconic, and Jake's 100% right. The reason why it's so scary is this idea of not being able to fall asleep. I mean, it's what a great idea in terms of a horror film. But I mean, if you're talking favorite here, I can't deny when I was 12 what Scream did for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it was honestly. Go ahead.
You were saying that's scary, but I was like, but isn't it more scary the real thought that someone would go insane and start killing people just because they like a movie? Yeah. Like they like horror movies.
But with Freddy, like, you're playing by his rules.
No, I agree. I was just pointing out that I think it's not that he's in a fantasy world that's terrifying, but in the real world, one of those horror movies that feel like they could be real, it's a different kind of terrifying, because you're like, well, maybe my neighbor is insane.
There's a weight to the deaths in. You're right. There's like a fantasy quality to the Nightmare films. But I mean, like I've said this before, and I was 12. I mean, but I have a whole story about that movie. Like my buddy Ben and I went to the theater together. His dad bought a third ticket, walked us through the usher. We got into the theater. He rolled out and came back and picked us up 2 hours later, or however long the film was. I mean, the excitement of like getting into an R-rated film and then seated, and then like the adults with you, and so the usher knows that, and then he rolls out, and then there's part of you in the back of your mind that's like, okay, he's gone now. What if the usher comes down the aisle and sees 2 kids sitting in the seats?
You are such a rule follower. There's a rule follower element to you that's fascinating.
I broke the rules there.
Yeah, but you were really worried about getting caught. Like
but getting caught was almost like the fun of it. Like if you could successfully get through an R-rated film that you snuck into. I mean, because I was 12. I mean, I looked like a kid. My buddy Ben and I are sitting there watching Scream. And again, we don't know what Scream is. I mean, you have to remember, put yourself in a situation where you don't remember what Scream was, right? And you watch that opening scene with Drew Barrymore, who's one of the biggest stars on the planet.
Who they marketed as the star of the film.
Right. And
they Janet Leighed that shit.
I'll tell you right now, I rewatched it again last night. They released a 4K of the which is a much better transfer. If anybody out there's a physical media nerd like I am, the original Scream transfer on Blu-ray is not great. It's super soft. They did a 4K transfer of the new one, of just the first one. Sorry, it's outstanding. It actually awesome. It looked like the time I saw it in theaters for the first time. I think they must have gone back to the original camera negatives and struck that print or whatever. I don't know how they did it. But every time I watch that opening scene, the reason why I picked this is because when Drew Barrymore is running towards her parents and she can't get her voice to and they're walking up to the front door and they're right there. And every single time I watch it, I'm like, will they hear her this time? Will they go over and help her? I mean, like there's something so insanely. This is the same thing for West Side Story, where I was like, if a filmmaker is able to bring you into that world and still make you forget that something could happen, or you hope something will change, every beat of that film is perfect. Every single beat, from even just the edits to like Billy going to the room after Neb's scene when Ghostface calls her when she's home alone. Like there's just like, I don't know. It to me, it's a masterpiece beyond words. It is perfect filmmaking, and it is just, to this day, still holds up. It's one of the greatest horror movies of all time.
Kev, you've interviewed Drew Barrymore before, haven't you?
Yeah. You have a question about one of her movies?
I just didn't know if she ever told you her favorite. Did Drew Barrymore ever tell you her favorite Raven Simone TV show? She really loves Raven Simone's TV show.
I don't know that.
That's
I know
so Wes Craven.
That's so Craven. Yes, thank you very much.
I don't even know who Raven Simone is, so I wouldn't have gotten that.
That's a
Did
damn
you guys
shame.
know in
shame.
Scream, in the opening scene of Scream, when Casey's father tells Casey's mother, when they're clearly starting to realize something bad is going on,
to go down the street,
go to the Mackenzies.
Yes.
Okay. And that is a tip of the cap to Halloween. Because at the
really?
very end, Jamie Lee Curtis
cool.
grabs the kids after Michael attacks them and tells the 2 kids, go to the Mackenzies.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know what's funny about that? I love that you said that, because as I was watching the first Scream, not knowing that piece of movie trivia, I was rewatching it last night. I'm like, it's such a brilliant name to use in a script, because it sounds like the name of a neighbor who'd be down the street. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mackenzie
as opposed to like go to the Smiths.
Right. Like honestly, like when the father says that, it's so funny you brought that up, because I thought to myself the other night, I'm like, Kevin Williamson, I didn't know it was a reference to Halloween. I was like, that is such a smart name, because it sounds like a neighborhoody family that would be living down the street. It was like, it's so real and so like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's smart. Yeah.
All right, audience picks. Selena went with The Last House on the Left. Michael Breen. Michael Breen says he's staying away from Scream, so he's going with Shocker. William went with Scream 2. John Palmer said Nightmare on Elm Street. And then several people went with Scream, including KDP, Jacob Malone, and Harry Lichtman. So we want to thank everybody for
participating. Did anyone say Nightmare 3? I was wondering if there might be some.
Gabe, did you see any Nightmare 3s out there?
There might have been one out there. There might have been one or two.
One or two? Yes. Next week, I had a suggestion from listener Zach Peters. We're going to be playing hashtag superhero theme blend. Superhero theme blend. So you're going to have to come up with a theme song from a particular superhero. And let us know your favorite.
Oh my God. What a good one.
Particular theme.
Sure.
And I will say from a particular movie. Because even within the MCU, their themes kind of change movie to movie.
Like Danny Elfman's Batman, like
Correct.
Okay.
Can we play them on the show, or are we not allowed to play them on the show?
No, we cannot. But
But we will all be wearing hockey pads.
But if you can hum them, I'll let you hum them along.
we can play them on the show, but we're gonna need to increase the price of our premium episodes.
Yes.
To $100,000.
Or if any of you are copyright lawyers and are willing to work pro bono.
Drop us a review while you guys are on Apple Podcasts listening to us. You can also leave us a rating on Spotify. Please make sure you do that. It helps us share the show. Our next premium episode, which we are recording right after this, is the 2022 Fantasy Movie Draft. And once again, you can get access to this and all of the episodes of ReelBlend Premium, as well as an ad-free version of the show and a newsletter that I am putting out this week by going to cinemablend.com/ReelBlend Premium. In the meantime, we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Follow us on social media at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, at Gabe Kovac, and the show is at ReelBlend. We'll talk to you guys next week. See you soon. Bye.
Wait, hold on. Gabe's has something to say.
Gabe.
Last week we said that our most anticipated movie of the year was going to be the movie that we scream at the end of the episodes for this year.
That's fair.
The Batman.
The Fablemans.
Hockey pads.
The Batman.